We are back
Again.
This is the second broadcast of the day.
Second broadcast.
Typically is our best. It's for our folks out on the West Coast.
So we hope it's our best. And you know,
Victor very, very seldom gives love to the West Coast.
I love the West Coast, by the way. I love the West Coast. All this West Coast in the house, I give it to you. Okay,
we got a note from our number one salesman in the company that we weren't showing enough love after the first broadcast. So we're going to right that ship today.
Okay, we'll try to do our best here, man.
So no, again, this is our fifth, if you can believe it, it's our fifth residential sales chat.
It was only like yesterday, Ed.
Only like yesterday. I got to tell my wife, we've been married for almost 40 years. It feels like 90.
Yeah.
Again, this stuff's recorded, but
Send that to your wife, man.
She
Let's
may
see
not
who's out
get
there.
it.
By the way, I saw Roy Elegato just jamming early on. He's got the glasses on. He's all cool in the car, blinking his ring. I don't know for what reason he's doing that. I think it's a fist bump right back at you, brother.
That might be his President's Club ring there.
Oh,
it's not his ring. Yeah.
Okay. He's
Well, I got Chris Anderson out there again. Chris is always one of our guys that's not guys and gals, not camera shy. So please kick those cameras on if you haven't already.
Yeah. Hey, Dan Potter, smile a little bit. It's okay to smile, Dan. It's okay to smile, brother. There you go.
I think Mark Stevens is on. Mark Stevens, great termite salesman.
Who's the guy with the iPad name with the fan over his head? You know I hate that, Ed.
That's Brian.
Brian
Locke.
Man, him and his fan.
He's been around for a long time. Oh, he's
It's like propeller heads, you know. Come on, Brian.
He's trying to get a haircut.
Come on, man. All right.
all good.
All right.
No, welcome again. Second broadcast, second try. So usually we get a little better at this.
I want to say hi to Paula. She looks all serious. So
Tell Paula not to be so serious. She's smiling now. There you go.
All right.
All right, so cool. Let's get going.
Let's do this.
Let's start with really just sharing some numbers and just some terrific performance in August. Across the board. These are our residential focused sales folks and sales managers. So the residential sales for August for the company, these aren't region numbers. Our termite sales in August were up 28% over last year. I mean, just outstanding results.
You would think with the post-pandemic, you would see a drop in numbers.
It's just screaming. And I've been around a long time, as many of you know. Running a 28% sales increase is not a big deal if you had a really crappy year last year, right?
Yeah.
But this is like the fourth consecutive year of 20% termite sales increases for the company. So it just keeps building and building and building and building. Folks are selling a bunch of ancillary services. It's starting to catch hold across the country. I mean, it's just magnificent what's going on. It's just crazy.
I love it.
When we look at it year to date, I mean, we're 17% up on our termite sales over last year to date. Again, just outstanding. Our residential PC sales, it's about 75% of that is sold to call center, and 25% of that is sold out in the field by our techs or by our home sales inspectors out there selling mosquito or selling pest control. We had about a 1% increase in August over last year's sales. Now that may not seem like the 28% we're doing in termite, but the unique thing about our residential PC sales is they are really demand driven, or in Orkin terms, inbound lead driven. So we eked out a 1% increase over last year's August residential PC sales. But the cool thing about that is we did that with the 7% decline in demand, 7% decline in leads. So you make that conversion, that's an 8% win in my book, and that's the stuff that legends are made of, right? So I mean, even though demand's down, we're selling more bundles, we're selling more mosquitoes, bundles, just really great performances.
Right. I mean, that's pretty good. By the way, you said mosquito.
Skeeters.
I just want to make sure you said mosquito, man.
I get skeeters.
By the way, you've told me this before, but I forgot. How many years have you been with Rollins Shorkin? How many years?
So October.
I truly forgot. I'm asking.
I've got an anniversary coming up. I'll let them do the math, because it's like asking a lady how old she is.
Yeah.
I started October 3rd, 1983.
Wow.
And so like half of the folks out there weren't even born then, Victor.
Man, I was like 20 years old.
Thanks a lot. At least you were born. No, but I mean, I just had a great career. As many people know, it's been totally focused in sales and sales management. But,
by the way, those are some great numbers.
Phenomenal numbers.
7% drop in leads, but still a 1% over last year.
Home run.
Nice
home run. And then we've also, we get the work started, we get it produced. And we convert it to ultimately profit, right? That's why we're all in the game, is turning those sales into profit dollars. And just a phenomenal profit month for the company. I mean, we're talking about the greatest profit August the company has ever had.
That sounds like a movie line.
It should be.
The greatest profit August ever for Orkin. That's pretty
You
cool.
can make like a
actually.
banner or something.
Yeah,
But no, I
that's
mean,
pretty good.
just
Congratulations.
outstanding. And just continuing to build again on the year-to-date performance. We're on, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We're on like an 11-year run of making our profit plans.
Right.
As a company. So
Nicely done.
just outstanding.
Can I ask this question? I mean, what do you, in terms of plan, what are you ahead of plan, behind plan? Well, you're ahead of plan by how much? Percentage-wise?
We're up about 3% to profit plan right now,
Okay.
which is a monstrous increase. So,
Yeah.
they don't the managers on the call know that nothing gets easier.
Right.
The better you perform, the more they're going to lay on you. And they're in the budgeting process right now, for next year. So, we're going to, believe it or not, be expected to do this again, Victor.
Yeah, that's the way
And
they
again,
do it.
and again, and again, right? So, no, just outstanding stuff. And the other note that the next thing we're going to share is the list of 37 Orkin pros. 37 Orkin pros that have achieved that perfect mile. Now, the definition of perfect mile in my book is not what you sold, it's what hit your wallet, what you got paid on. So in the month of August, we had 37 folks get paid on over 100 grand. We've had the conversations before at 14% commission. We're talking big commission, $15,000.
Nice checks.
This list of 37 folks, they all made 15 grand next month, no matter how you skin it.
Gotcha.
No matter how you
Love
skin
it.
it.
Love it.
So what do you say we go? Let's go see who reached the mountaintop
Let's
in
see.
August.
Let's see who did it. Let's
Aubrey,
go.
let that tape roll, baby.
Roll it.
Wow.
Good numbers, man.
How about that list?
Great numbers, man. Great numbers.
That'll teach you from calling out
Yeah.
SoCal with Mr. Wirt at the top of the heap.
Brian Moneyworth, a.k.a. BMW #1. Well done, Mac. We just call him BMW.
That might be a good
I
nickname
might
for him.
stick to that
You know,
guy.
he's our reigning chairman of the Chairman's Club.
Is he?
Top producer.
Is he?
And last week he picked up the #1 rack award. So,
Love
so
it,
he
man.
sent me a note after the first broadcast. I think he's even back on this
Is
one.
it? Yeah,
that
hope-
Victor was not showing the West Coast enough love. So what do you got to say about that?
Here's why I have a problem with the West Coast. Pay attention. I got a problem with the West Coast. Let's go to the number. I'm gonna do. Who's that guy? Joe Madden. Let's go. Let's go to the tape. Here, come on, man. You guys have never done this. Go to the tape. Brian, pay attention. I'm talking to you, brother. All right. See that, Brian Worth? I love you. BMW in the house. Thumbs up. I got you. Okay. Let's look for California again. Nope. 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 Nope.
Don't
nope,
do this.
Nope. 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 What? Oh! Wait a minute. There he is. Jose, also known as Ernesto Aguilar, makes it to the list. But that's it. I can scan the whole list, and there's no other Californian on there.
That's enough.
I'm just teasing you, by the way. I'm just teasing you. West Coast, love you.
That's not fair. You're going to get me in all kinds of trouble. All right, back.
Well done. Good numbers. The Corpez brothers are back up there again.
The Corpez brothers are back up there again.
Son and where's he at? Ray.
Ray
Well done,
Bryan.
man.
Outstanding.
Well
Outstanding.
done. Anybody else on that you noticed? Maybe somebody new, somebody
Yeah,
old?
there's somebody really new, and I want to kind of shout him out.
Okay.
From a personal standpoint, and the fact that he's my number 2 favorite termite salesman in the company.
Oh, wow. Okay, you got
Number
favorites.
2.
You got
Number
favorites.
2. I have favorites. You know, I got 4 kids, right? I got my son and triplet daughters, and I think they've all figured out which one of my kids, even though they're not supposed to know who the favorite is. And then I've got 3 granddaughters with another granddaughter on the way. And I think everybody on the planet knows who's my favorite granddaughter. And I feel kind of ashamed about that, but you know, the truth is the truth. So my number 1 favorite termite salesman in all of Orkin, so don't be offended, any of you, just happens to be my son-in-law who is married to my daughter, who is up there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and raising my 2 granddaughters. So he's absolutely number 1.
I think that's called nepotism.
It's absolutely
called nepotism.
absolutely called nepotism, but you know, quite frankly, I don't care.
Good.
but my number
Well
2
done.
guy is somebody really special. Lance Pitts from the Youngstown, Ohio office
There he is. Yeah.
transitioned from termite service to termite sales the beginning of this year. Here's the deal about Lance. He was a termite tech for over 24 years. He's about to celebrate his 25th anniversary with the company. So for 24 years, this guy just busted his hump. And he did a lot of my termite work as I was kind of transitioning into a sales management role. So I just wanted to shout Lance out, you know, and kind of just acknowledge what he's done. 24 years of grinding. Wow. You know, and these folks on the phone now, or these folks on the call, know how important a good termite tech is, and Lance was magical. I think he went to President's Club. It's a nomination process, so it really isn't fair. I believe he should have won every year. I think he hung 3 President's Club packs as a termite technician, and it just shows that transition. You know, his first month in, Victor, he was a little nervous, right? I made this transition, and he didn't jump out of the gates real well. But right now, he's sitting as the number 1 salesperson in Ohio for the year. And he's going to make his way to President's Club, you know, as a salesman in his very first year. So that's kind of my shout out to Lance, probably selfishly, but I think the message is even more for our managers that are on the call. You know, as we're trying to find and source sales candidates, oftentimes they're sitting in our rooms. They're working for us already. You got a solid technician. We know that he shows up for work every day. We know he's got great ethics. We know he busts his tails. We know he knows how to talk to customers. And all we got to do is kind of tee up a chance for him and convince him. You know, at our President's Club, when we send 100 people to President's Club, 25, 30 of them had started as technicians with us.
I was ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it in the first broadcast. It's a natural transition, right?
I think, well, for me, you know this already about me. I started out as an engineer first before I moved into sales, and the transition made it easy because I could talk about the products and service very naturally. So it's not surprising that a technician can make that transition. So well done.
You talk about authentic and being credible.
Yeah.
You know, when he talks to people about doing termite work, he can tell them, man, I did this for 24 years.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you all go back and be termite techs, but
there is a confidence that comes from that,
no
right?
doubt.
You understand, and I think that when you present it to a customer really comes across.
No doubt.
Yep.
And the difficulty we have in hiring salespeople, right now today, we need 100. We're down 100 salespeople across
Really?
Orkin.
Wow.
We got about 1,100 of you. We need 1,200. You know, our staffing plans say we need 1,200. And if we're going to continue to chase these numbers that we're going to chase next year or be budgeted with, we're going to need more people. I think sometimes they're sitting in your ranks. You just haven't realized it. Go pluck a few of the stars out of there and put them in a car, get them out of a truck and put them in a car and let them go make life-changing money. Lance made $15,000 last month.
All right, I'm gonna knock Lance down. So Lance, look at the list. You're at the bottom. So work.
That's rotten.
That's wrong.
Hey, there's one more. There's one more guy on that list that that I want to kind of highlight, and his name's Gary Richmond. He's down towards the bottom again. Victor will probably make fun of him.
I'll leave him alone.
But Gary Richmond and David Payne are coming to Atlanta. In fact, I think they're arriving today. They're going to be presented with their 25th President's Club ring, and these rings are Super Bowl rings. And Victor, I think, is going to flip the screen over and show you these rings.
Look at that, man. I feel like the Home Shopping Network. What we have here is the ring.
So there are 25 diamonds in this ring, representing every year they've qualified for President's Club. And last year at President's Club, these guys couldn't get them because the rings didn't come in. A lot of you folks that won your 5th-year rings or got more diamonds or even got your 2nd-year ring, we weren't able to hand them out because, you know, COVID or supply chain, all this BS that happened. But these guys are coming tomorrow to have lunch with Mr. Rollins and receive their rings. They're very rare.
Beautiful.
There's 2 here.
Are those real diamonds, though?
Those are real diamonds.
Real diamonds.
Real
Wow.
diamonds.
Okay.
There are 2 out in the field. One is Roger Kennedy, who's done this 30 times, and the other one is a guy from the West Coast, a commercial seller for us.
Right.
Chris Pierce, our #1 commercial salesman of all time in Orkinland. So this is number 3 and number 4.
This is an expensive ring.
Very expensive.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
asked. I can't tell you because
He told me the price.
Yeah.
It's an expensive ring.
It's pricey.
Yeah.
No, but just outstanding. And
Yeah.
again, Gary and David will be here, and just super 25 years of consistent performance, right?
Yeah.
Top line performance. You know, on the list again, the story stays the same. You know, we had over 20 regions representing the 37 people.
Wow.
Right? I mean, again,
That's great numbers.
From Seattle all the way down to South Florida.
Well,
you know, from Brian Wirth and Jose
Yeah,
out there on
we
the
got
West
some-
Coast, all the way up to New York State, just crazy.
Yeah, even the East Coast is doing exceptionally well. Kevin Tinsley said Victor drank his Tough Love beverage this morning. Really?
Man.
Thank you for that.
Hey, we had 2 regions that really stood out on the list as well. We had Maryland that put 5 people on that list. Maryland put 5 people on that list, followed up by the Iowa-Wisconsin
I was
region.
mentioning Iowa-Wisconsin. Wow.
Wisconsin, 4
Midwest
folks
in the house.
on the
Yeah.
list.
Well
Amen.
done.
No, just again, just outstanding performance, and you know, see if you can go get your 25th year ring.
What is Nth Texas?
North Texas, Oklahoma.
North Texas. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's like the longest region name. It doesn't fit on my little cheat sheet.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, just really good performance. Why
Good
don't we get into what we're talking about, right?
Let's do it.
So the first thing I would just kind of mention is, you know, we had this event last week in New Orleans that a lot of the folks on the call, the RAC reward trip, and the folks had a great time down there. So that was outstanding. But what we have tried to do in the previous 4 broadcasts was really just kind of what I guess we've tagged as skipping stones, right? We want to serve up some information, not dive too deep into it, you know, in the half hour or so that we have with you. Serve up some information with the intent or the hope that you'll dig a little deeper into the Sales Velocity Academy and study and practice and practice and practice. So just help me talk about practice, because I'm just a broken record. I've been talking about practice since I took one of these sales manager jobs in the late 90s, and sometimes I don't think people listen to me or take it seriously.
Well, let's get back to our friend who was a tech for 24 years before he moved into sales. He doesn't have a lot to practice, right? Because it's just natural for him. And I think that ability to communicate something. Look, in today's world, people are not having a hard time, I guess, making a decision to buy. They're having a hard time making a decision which one or what service to buy. And what people sense is that again, that authenticity. And I've said this many times, Ed, vocalization, which is all confidence, how you say things, how you respond to tough questions like, you're more expensive than your competitor, I'm comfortable with the supply I currently have right now. How you respond to that with confidence determines how that conversation will flow.
Yeah. And before we skip the next stone that introduced this 5th stone, or maybe 10 stones at that time, but we're going to focus on one for the next 2 broadcasts. I just wanted to highlight, we talked about, what do you say when the customer says they want to think about it? Have you practiced that? Are you fluid? As soon as somebody says that, you go bang. Here we go. We talked about pitching triple cheeseburgers, talking about the, creating credibility with the asymmetry, symmetry. Eye levels, bi-level. Are you practicing these things? So, so if you haven't, go back, watch the previous broadcast, jump into the academy. But today, what we want to do is really introduce what I consider to be Victor's calling card, and it's the reason he's in front of you today, and he has been for the past 11 years. 11 years ago, I think I've told the story a couple times. I was a fairly seasoned sales manager with kind of the same group of folks that I kept bringing my message to, bringing it. It got to the point where, oh, here comes Ed. He's going to talk about this, and this. And I just didn't feel that I was bringing enough to my team. So I went out on YouTube. You guys know that my YouTube obsession. Went out on YouTube and said, give me sales gurus, right? And Victor popped up on YouTube. It was in his early days of getting on YouTube. And I watched a bunch of the videos, sent him a direct message, and boom, he sent it back. Come to find out, he's 20 minutes up the road. So we connected. And then what we first did with Victor is we brought him into our advanced sales classes that we were holding down here in Atlanta for the Atlantic division. Where we brought a bunch of our hypo, salespeople that are in, and we kind of took them, sales 202, sales 303, but just really took it a little further than we do with our initial training. And really the calling card and the attraction thing was, I'd forever and a day been teaching people how to overcome objections, feel, felt, found, all those kind of things that quite frankly, at the end of the day, ended up being a bunch of crap, right? So what Victor introduced to us way back then, 11 years ago, was his response block selling book that talks about overcoming objections, trying to prevent them from coming up so you don't have to hurdle through that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to introduce, Victor's going to kind of take control here and introduce you, just a brief introduction to response block selling and or blocking objections versus overcoming objections. And then what we're going to ask you to do in the chat is we're going to ask you to just kind of populate that with your most frequent objections. If you get 2 or 3 or 4 of them consistently. And then what we'll do the next broadcast after we give you the introduction is Victor and I will script a couple of these out and take it from there. So let me just turn it over to you. And
right.
This is your sweet spot, man.
Thank you. All right, so let me just set this up. So within the Sales Velocity Academy, there's a course called Blocking Objections. It is the most valuable course. Notice I didn't say kind of, sort of, maybe. It is the most valuable course. It'll also reduce the buyer resistance when you're talking to them. But let me give you the science behind blocking objections as opposed to overcoming. So let's go to the screen here. They did this study where they drew a bunch of lines. The experimenters drew a bunch of lines, right? And then they asked 3 groups of people to look at the lines and estimate the average length of the line. So group number 1, if you can bring the camera back to me, group number 1 said something. They went to group number 1 and said, all right, estimate the length of those lines and then come up with an average, right? And just hold that thought in your head, whatever you think the answer is, right? Group number 2, they said, okay, look at the lines, come up with an estimate, and then they had them write their answer on a magic pad. Remember the magic pad back in the day? You would write on it, and then you go, and you could erase it. That was group number 2. Group number 3, what we want you to do is estimate the length of the line, and then write your answer on a sheet of paper, sign it, and then hand it in, right? Phase 1 of the experiment. Phase 2 of the experimenter came back with an answer he knew would not match any of the group's answers. He went to group number 1, who just had to think about it, and basically said, you're wrong. Group number 1 didn't fight it. Went to group number 2, who wrote it, but erased it. They put up a little resistance, but in the end, they capitulated. They said, whatever, you may be right, Victor. Group number 3, who wrote it down, signed it, and handed it in, refused to bow to the experiment. In other words, screw you, we're right, you're wrong. Why? So Morton and Deutsch kind of said, well, what's happening here? Here's what they concluded, the short version of this. If your answer is still in your head, you can change somebody's mind. Over here to this extreme, if they write it down, that means they've made it public. If they declare it vocally or written it down, people refuse to change their mind. So let's think about this. What is an objection? Let me go to the slide. What is an objection? We've been taught overcoming objection. How do you do it? By raising it. But you got to block the objection. And what I want to do now is teach you how to block an objection while it's still in the customer's mind. Again, the point here being that if it's in their mind, you can block it. But as soon as they verbalize it, you can't block it. Here's an example. I was working with a software company, and one of the things I used to always have to overcome was the client's thinking the software is too complicated. Now, do I wait for the client to say, hey, that software looks really complicated? No, because once they verbalize that, I can't change their mind. It becomes very difficult to do so. So here's how you block an objection. It's a 4-step process. First, you raise the objection. Many clients tell me the software is hard to use, and that's understandable. I just raised the objection. Now pause here for a second. If I raise the objection, what does that transmit to the client? the prospect in this case that I'm being very forthright. I'm being very open. And so in other words, well, I'm glad he brought it up because I was afraid to bring it up. It's like a price objection, right? Once you bring up price, the person goes, well, I'm glad he said it because I was thinking about it. Back to the slide. So again, you raise the objection by going, many clients tell me the software is hard to use. Then you offer to resolve it. You say something like this, but let me show you a few things to show you how easy it is to use that even a technophobe such as yourself will pick it up quickly. Can I? May I? And then you do a demo, right? Click, drag, point, drag, cut, paste, whatever it may be. You show them something, and then here's the key part. Here's the critical piece. You're going to tie down the objection by saying something like this. Ed, based on what I've just shown you, do you think with a little practice and our support, you could do this? And then you shut up and you wait for the objection. Now, see what I did? It's a simple structure. So, Ed, how would you organize that?
Yeah, before I do that, I just want to add a couple things, right? I think when you bring up the objection, it does a couple things for you. Obviously, they may have been thinking that and they say, I'm glad he brought that up. But I think more importantly, they get that you get it, right? That you know that this is an issue and we're going to address it and we're going to handle it right now. It's not the first time you've heard it, right? So there's a comfort level in that. I think that's vitally important. And then you've got, it's the political season. Spin your Democrat, Republican, Libertarian touch on this because I think that'll resonate. George is crazy right now with the politics.
Oh,
the ads are just, I was driving here on the radio. I couldn't even get a song on the radio in the 10-minute drive.
The ads are bombing.
Talk about that.
Here's the logic. Here's the psychology behind it. Is that once you state an objection, once you publicly vocalize something, you take a position. That's what it is. If you say, I'm a Republican, then you will look for information to confirm why you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, you'll do the same thing. If you're a Libertarian, you'll say the same thing. So this is interesting because when people say something and now they've taken a position, it becomes that much more difficult to argue with them because they've taken a position. For them to change their mind would cause something called cognitive dissonance, which means what they think and how they're behaving don't align. So when somebody vocalizes something, they're basically, I want you to think about, as soon as somebody says like, you're too expensive, you're more expensive than your competitor, I want you to kind of imagine like they kind of firmed up their position and they're like saying, all right, convince me that you're not. That's not the position you want to be in.
Right. Yeah, and I think that happens all the time, right? Yep. When historically when we get that, and I think most of our non-practiced, I guess, would be the best term on how to overcome objection salespeople. When they get that, the defense mechanism kicks in, right? They see the walls starting to go up, and they're like, "What do we do now?" And they really do tactics that don't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, as soon as they hear, what do you mean we're too expensive, right? Then they get all confused.
Compared to what?
Compared to what? Then they get belligerent, and the thing is, this is why we talk about role playing, practicing what you have to say.
Yeah.
Now, we should highlight this because somebody brought it up in the previous segment, and that is never raise an objection that isn't there.
Yeah.
In other words, never raise, if the objection never comes up or it's an outlier, an exception to the rule, obviously never block it. I want to show you one last slide.
Let me organize that just a bit because
do it first.
I kind of cut you off there, but
that's okay.
I do want to organize that a bit. So obviously, I think with our residential sellers, the biggest objection that we're fearful of hearing is you're more money, right? But let's face it. You're an Orkin Pro. You're going to be more money unless you've done something drastically wrong with your rate card calculations. If the customer says, "Wow, you're cheaper than everybody else," you better try to slide that contract to your boss, under the dark of night because you probably did something wrong. But I think knowing that that's there, how do you raise that? How do you throw it out there? Take ownership of it. Like, I got it. We know we're higher priced. Let me try to show you why. I don't know when you do that. You don't do it when you knock on the door and say, "Hey, Victor, get a load of this. We're going to be more money. Let me show you why. Because I'm the Orkin Pro." I think you got to find a time. So so think about the time that I've found best, and everybody will find their own fit. It may happen on your walk along. It may happen, when you start to get into your presentation. But I found the most comfortable fit for me is after I've blown them away by showing up on time, triaging the lead, making sure the buying powers are there, doing this killer inspection, putting this wonderful iPad presentation together like we teach it, try to bring it perfect. I found that right before I begin to share the results of my inspection and the solutions we're going to recommend to the customer, hopefully you've positioned them at the kitchen table to connect the dots, that we've got them there. I prefer to launch into it at that point in time, Victor, where I just simply say, hey, look, you know, obviously I've been doing this a long time. You folks have a decision to make here, and this is really in a competitive situation, and you just launch into it. You know, many of our customers initially feel that we're more expensive than others, and you know, on and on and on, and then just kind of we'll script that out for you a little bit better. But at that point in time, you know, hopefully by the end of this presentation, what I've already exhibited to you, you'll see that it makes. Hopefully you'll find and come to the conclusion that it makes more sense to spend more money, a little bit more money the first time than having to end up like Mrs. Jones. I'm going to, you know, for my next appointment on her third termite company. So I think that's an opportunistic time to share that.
Sure.
But again, it could come up anywhere. But the biggest piece of it is, I think you're going to touch through a couple, but it's got to be practiced, right? So that was really rough as I did that. But think about, you know, and each customer's going to be different, but take the scripts and kind of make them your own. So go ahead and jump into that.
So real quickly, and like I said, all this is in the Sales Velocity Academy. So we're just giving you the rough cut, so to speak. But let me go to the final slide. So imagine that resistance is always high and you're presenting for 45 minutes. Our job is to block those objections throughout. And as you block these objections, like for example, no, you know, we're just curious, we're just looking around. You can block that one. You can block the I want to do more research objection, price objection, now's not a good time, we're happy with our current supplier, that's the switch over. And what happens is as you're blocking these objections, you will feel that resistance go down. And again, how you sequence these, I guess we want to talk about that, Ed. How do you sequence these is really up to you, what you feel comfortable and when. So timing and sequence are the two things we have to figure out, and only you can do that.
Yeah, and at that point in time, you've spent 30, 45 minutes climbing around their house, climbing in their attic, climbing in their crawl space, doing the inside, doing the full inspection. You got a little feel for if they're having anybody else come out, and you got to feel where you're at. So I think it's important to start to click those and plant those in. And like you said, you don't talk about a chemical objection,
right?
You know,
if it's not there, if it
doesn't
come up,
exist, right? If they've not mentioned it in your time. So that's why it's always important to be really engaged with the customer when you're walking around. And that's another piece of it, just kind of piling on. You know, when I do my graphing and pricing, a lot of folks are in the habit of doing it in their car or their truck, right? So let me go put this stuff together in the car or the truck. I have always been of the mindset that I want to do it in front of them.
Can we ask the folks, what do they think is the best strategy? Do you think doing it in front of the customer or going to the truck?
Now let me finish though.
Okay, I want to hear this.
Doing it in front of the customer, I was always very fearful of losing contact with the customer. Me sitting out in the car and the husband and wife sitting there thinking, oh my God, what's he doing out there? How much is this going to cost, Louise? What are we getting into? So what I've always tried, and I practice it, and I've done it, you know, we had to draw them on paper before you guys had all the tools you have now. I always just came back, finishing my inspection by just simply asking them, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Victor, do you have a table I can sit at to connect the dots and put my solutions together for you? So invariably what they did is they led you to a kitchen table. So you're not pitching business on the trunk, you know, on the hood of a trunk. Right. You're not sitting on a couch in an uncomfortable position. And when you get really good at this, you'll figure out what seat you want to sit in and split the difference and have them on both sides of you. But I was always fearful of that. So you got to get good. You got to get practiced at putting your graphs together. But the whole time you're putting it together, you know, your iPad opens up to a picture of your kids, you know, all these other kind of fun things. You're in conversation with them the whole time, trying to flush some of this stuff out. So that's my thought on it. It's something you got to practice. You know, you got to be good at it, but you sit there very conversationally, just throwing your numbers together, and you do your thing. That my fear, maybe it's the crazy way that my mind's wired. I never wanted that customer to be alone without having me influence. And you know, I only got a couple hours with them. I don't want them sitting there thinking, oh boy, what's he doing out there? Man, he's a long time. Right. What are we going to do? So that's my crazy sales mind.
Yeah, no. I wonder what your opinion is out there. How do you do it? Do you do it in the car? Jonathan says, I do it in the car. It allows me to change over from my crawl suit to my Orkin Superman suit, then come back dry and clean and present. A good point of view. Gabriel says, at the kitchen table. Peter says, did you just say that you want the customers on the sides of you?
Yes.
That's what he said.
I want to split them. I want them this way.
That's
again, personal preference and just years of experience on how I do it. Again, you know, the old Bruce Lee line. What's that deal?
Absorb what is useful, disregard what is not, and then add what is uniquely yours. Everybody presents differently.
That's what all this is about. But yeah, I mean, just I like coming back to the door, ringing the doorbell, and stripping out of my crawl suit in front of them, rolling my collar back up, rolling my sleeves back down, and popping my tie back on while I'm standing in the doorway.
I love that. By the way, B. Cummings says in front of the customer to show pricing and transparency. Gordon says measure and graph during walk around, add to graph with pics and icons at the table.
Nice.
Zoom user says, me too, I go to the car to get clean and to smell good. You guys are crazy. Awesome. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Hey, by the way, I do want to emphasize, so this course, Blocking Objection, is in the Sales Velocity Academy. There's also a book that I wrote with it, really simple to read, and it has about 23 different, I guess, blocking objections for different types of objections. Yep. So then you can just take that and rewrite the script your way.
Absolutely. And we shared this blocking objections intro with the commercial folks last week. And the night before we went in to do this, I sat on my back deck, smoking a cigar, drinking an IPA like I kind of do, and walked through all 13 of those videos in less than an hour, Victor. The longest one was like 5 minutes long.
Yeah, they're not long.
So they're short. You can consume all that content. It'll get your mind thinking right. Again, this is one of those things like a lot of the things that get introduced to you that are new. Even a 30-year sales veteran flipped his mind around, 10 years ago. And I was pretty good at what I did. I wasn't the greatest. I wasn't the Brian Worst of the world, but I was pretty good. But it completely changed my mindset, and I can promise you it was very clunky at first. I didn't get it, right? It took practice. But y'all know that's really how I've kind of honed my honed my game by just practicing all the time, right? So, I'll watch all these videos that we do and go over them and critique and that kind of thing. But I think that's really what it takes to get this stuff dialed in. It won't be easy. It'll be uncomfortable. When I started in this business and all the way up until probably 10 years ago, if somebody told the customer we're going to be higher priced than everybody else, anytime early on, or even in the middle of the presentation, there'd be managers out there that would fire you, take you to task. Why'd you share the price before you got to page 92 of the proposal, right? So I think the whole mindset, we dealt with some price framing on that as well. So, just really good content. What we want you to do now is to hit that chat up and put in the objections that you typically get. And then what we will do, the two knuckleheads here will do, we'll go back and we will try to script some responses to share with you. And again, the importance is not to verbatim spit them back the way we would write them, to kind of own them and make them yours, right?
That's right. There you go. There you go.
I don't know that anything else you want to add to the blocking objections?
No, I just want to add that, my boss is the same way. If you brought up price as the issue, his whole thing was, if price is the only thing holding me from making sales, then why do I need you, Victor?
Amen.
To which I said, okay, I guess we don't want to talk about price anymore. Let's move on. All right.
Hey, let's get out of here. We're pushing time, and I just wanted to share a couple housekeeping things with you, and I'll be really short. Field day. We're going to do a field day October 18th, and other than a couple of regions and one of the divisions that has a conflict on that schedule date, the whole idea behind field day, actually Orkin Pro Day, we've kind of put a new name on it. What we want you to do, all the salespeople, all the managers, we want you in the trucks with our technicians. We want you in the truck with the pest control technician, driving around, doing stops, doing services, doing some clover leafing, really to build that bond. I mentioned Lance Pitts. Lance Pitts and I are good friends. And that exists because certainly we had fights, we argued with each other, we had knockdown dragouts, about the way he was doing stuff and the way I was being stupid selling something that he couldn't do. But at the end of the day, we had that relationship that I encourage all of you to build. So pick your technician to ride with on October 18th, jump in the car with them. Let me give you a bit of advice. Find the guy or the gal that's not giving you up leads as readily as some of the others, to see if you can show them that you're a human person. This is what you're trying to do, and you need their help. So that's October 18th. We're moving into the final quarter in a few days. 3 months left to punch your ticket to President's Club and maybe put that first or second or 10th or 20th stripe on your resume that will get you to that 25-year ring. Sent an email out earlier this week about overlooked prospecting sources. We continue this time of year. You got to get more creative. It's that time of year. You got to get more creative. Don't overlook the one-time services that are sold by the call center. They never get inspected. Roger Kennedy sells 2 or 3 of those a month, a nice bundle. And don't forget about your canceled termite and residential pest control accounts. Just great resources. Steve Howdle on a group me last night from the Iowa-Wisconsin region. Steve Howdle posted up that he's watching something on the news and energy costs were projected to go up 16%. So it's out in the public, right? That that information is out in the public. I imagine everywhere in the country they're talking about that.
Yep.
And what did we talk about earlier? Take advantage of that.
Leverage
right?
the news.
Leverage the news that it's going on. So if somebody's kind of hemming and hawing about putting the insulation up in their attic, say, my God, have you seen some of the news? Believe me, they're living it. Yeah.
Right.
I don't pay any of the bills in my house, but I can promise you, my wife, it's just the way we work.
Yeah.
She takes care of that. I take care of this. My wife told me that the electric bill's gone skyrocketing, right? So they're thinking it, they're living it. Leverage the news, use it in your favor, and take it from there. The last thing I've got is we recognized our RAC winners in New Orleans. So there were probably 6 or 7 people that weren't able to attend for various reasons. I wasn't able to go on like my favorite all-time Orkin trip, so I missed a whole bunch of the folks that are on this call at the RAC trip. So what we want to do is as we roll out here, we're going to go silent, but we're going to show all of the winners to include, we're going to use the slideshow they used at the awards presentation Saturday night, and we've added the folks that were unable to attend. And just take note of the number of years that these folks have won, and chat them out or shout them out as you see those names roll. And again, we will record this broadcast, and it'll be available probably tonight or tomorrow for y'all, and I'll send it out in my message. So that's all I got. I mean, just a phenomenal August. Let's drop the hammer on the fourth quarter.
Go team.
Go
That's
team.
all I got.
We're out.
Take care, guys. Have a great day.
Hang in and watch these names.